بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. Continuing with our third session, but in the journey of the soul. And so far we've talked about the pre-birth stage of the soul, so the creation of the soul. Last week we spoke about the most important and the most dangerous phase of the soul, and that is the active soul, meaning our day-to-day lives, and we broke it down into its different components. What exactly is the soul? Today we continue and we talk about the third, and it's a very scary stage of the soul. And because whenever someone starts to talk about death, if you go out in the public in front of your friends and you begin talking about death is, you can say it's a taboo topic, right? People like to avoid talking about death because it kills the vibe. They don't like to be reminded of death. Death is scary to some people when they think about the fact that, one day shall come where, what's going to happen to me during death? What am I going to go through? So how do we view this from an Islamic perspective? What actually happens to our soul during the moment of our death? Now, from the outside world, when someone is about to pass away, we see it from the outside that, this person, he is laying in the hospital bed, tied up to a bunch of monitors, and at some point the monitor just goes flat, and the doctors are going crazy. They're trying to resuscitate the person, CPR, the defibrillator, and all of that stuff. That's what we see on the outside. And then the body stops moving. However, on the other hand, the person who is actually passing away is going through so many different experiences. He's seeing many different things around him. Perhaps he's in the company of angels. Perhaps he's in the company of shayateen. Perhaps what to me and you looks like just a brief few seconds, to this person feels like a whole, eternity. It feels like several hours have gone by because of a bunch of different things that he is going through. So first and foremost, whether death is something that scares you, or whether it is something that you are come to terms with, death is going to come for you. Allah Azza wa Jal, He makes this declaration in the Quran. كُلُّ نَفْسٍ ذَائِقَةُ الْمَوْتِ. Every single soul shall taste death. However, in this wording, we learn something as well, that the soul itself does not die. The body is what dies. The soul tastes death. What is death? Death is the process of separating the ruh from the body. What is the ruh? We defined it last week. Ruh is the powerhouse of your body. Ruh is the plug, is your power, that is plugged to the wall. And death is, the plug has now been pulled out. That is what death is. However, does that mean that khalas, you disappear from existence? No. Your soul still exists. But it's of course going through a bunch of different experiences. And Allah Azza wa Jal confirms this again, and He says, أَيْنَمَا تَكُونُوا يُدْرِككُمُ الْمَوْتِ وَلَوْ كُنْتُمْ فِي بُرُوجٍ مُشَيَّدَةٍ. There is no avoiding death. Death is the one thing in this life that is certain to come for every person. So what exactly happens in the moment of death? Allah Azza wa Jal, He says in the Quran, قُلْ يَتَوَفَّاكُمْ مَلَكُ الْمَوْتِ الَّذِي وُكِّلَ بِكُمْ. Every single one of us, we have an angel that has been assigned to us ever since the moment of our creation. And this angel's only mission is to take your soul. And that is what we call the angel of death. So there's a misconception that there's only one angel of death and that he comes to everybody. No. Every single one of us, we have a different angel of death that is assigned for us. And once the time, he knows when the time shall come. Once the time comes, he shall come and take away our soul. The angel of death does not come alone. He comes down and he is accompanied by a group of angels. Depending on the state of that soul, going back to last week's lecture, Is is it a nafs al-ammara bis-su? Is it a nafs al-mutma'inna? Is it a good soul? Is it an evil soul? Depending on the nature of the soul, a certain group of angels will come down. And here is where we get a famous and a very long hadith that inshallah we're going to go through today, narrated to us by Al-Bara ibn Azib radiyallahu anhu, that when a person passes away, or when a person, actually before we go to that, when a person is about to pass away, they go into a state that is called, they're not dead yet, but they're experiencing the, for lack of better terminology, the pangs of death. Sakaratul maut. Allah Azza wa Jal, He mentions this in the Quran and He says, وَجَاءَتْ سَكْرَةُ الْمَوْتِ بِالْحَقِّ. That sakratul maut will come truthfully. ذَلِكَ مَا كُنْتَ مِنْهُ تَحِيدٌ. That is what you have been trying to avoid. What is sakratul maut? You can look up the translations. You know, the translation really means agony of death, but I don't like this translation. Sakra, you know, when we say that someone is drunk, okay, this person is sakran, right? And what defines this state of sukr? It defines it as someone who has lost his mind, someone who is, you know, he's not in control of himself, and he's just losing his mind and he's acting in certain ways. So this is what we call someone who is drunk. Well, sakratul maut is similar in a sense, not in a sense that a person is drunk, but it will come to a person so strongly that it will overwhelm him, and it will cause him to start losing consciousness and to start losing awareness. And every single person experiences sakaratul maut. There is no avoidance. No matter how pious you are, every single person, and even our Rasul sallallahu alayhi wasallam, we get to learn this. We learned this from the hadith of Aisha radiallahu anha, that when he was on his deathbed, before he actually passed away, he was in a state where he was phasing in and out, where he would gain consciousness and he would make wudu or make ghusl so he can get ready to pray, and then he would fall unconscious again. And then he would wake up again and repeat the same thing, and he would fall unconscious. So it's a state where he's phasing in and out of consciousness. And at some point, our Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he himself said, as he was on his deathbed, and he would say, La ilaha illallah, ala inna lil mawti sakarat, ala inna lil mawti sakarat. That verily death has its pain, death has its agony. So this is an experience that, and we ask Allah to make it easy for all of us, but every single person will have to go through the pangs of death before they meet the angel of death. So now we go into the reality of what happens when the time is now due. Al-Bara ibn Azib, he narrates in a long hadith, and he says, خرجنا مع النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم في جنازة رجل من الأنصار. One day, we came out with the Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam to a janazah. One of the men from the Ansar, the Muslims from the Ansar, he passed away, and we were in the graveyard. We were about to, do his janazah and bury him. فانتهينا إلى القبر. And we arrived at the grave. وَلَمَّا يُلْحَدْ. That the grave at that point, for some reason, the grave had not been dug yet. So there was a little bit of a delay, you can say, that the dead body is there, and they're waiting for the hole to be dug, and they're sitting right there. So while they're sitting down and waiting, our Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he tells us in a lot of elaborate details, what is this person now going through? So فَجَلَسَ رَسُولُ اللَّهِ صَلَّى اللَّهُ عَلَيْهِ وَسَلَّمْ وَجَلَسْنَا حَوْلَهُ وَكَأَنَّ عَلَى رُؤُوسِنَا الطَّيْرُ. And so he's describing the scene that our Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam sat down, and we all sat around him, and we sat so still, and we were so focused. Basically, we were so zoned in that it was as if like birds would come and sit on our heads, as if we're like motionless statues. And then he says, إِنَّ الْعَبْدَ الْمُؤْمِنِ إِذَا كَانَ فِي إِقْبَالٍ مِّنَ الْآخِرَةِ وَانْقِطَاعٍ مِّنَ الدُّنْيَا. If a servant of Allah lived his life striving constantly towards his akhirah. Akhirah was always on his mind. And he didn't really, he lived his dunya, but dunya was never really his purpose. نَزَلَ إِلَيْهِ الْمَلَائِكَةُ مِنَ السَّمَاءِ بِيضُ الْوُجُوهِ. That this person, that when it is his time to pass away, angels from the sky shall descend down, and their faces are white. كأن وجوههم الشمس. They are so bright as if their faces are the sun, meaning it's a good thing. Like they're very bright, they're very good looking, they're beautiful, they're pleasing to look at. معهم كفن من أكفان الجنة. And they're coming down with a shroud, the shroud that is from Jannah. وحنوط من حنوط الجنة. And حنوط is perfume, and حنوط من حنوط الجنة. So they're coming down with products from Al-Jannah that they will use to wrap this dead person with. But they don't come to the dead person. They simply sit near the dead person. So maybe they'll go and sit in that like back corner over there, just against the wall, and they'll just wait. Who are they waiting for? They're waiting for Malakul Maut, because it's not their job. Their job is not to take your soul. Their job is to transport your soul. So the angel of death, his job is to take the soul. And their job then is to take that soul from the angel of death and then transport it to the next stage. So they sit near the person who is passing away. And then the angel of death comes and approaches the person who is about to die. And he speaks to the person's soul. This is the righteous person. And he says, أَيَّتُهَا النَّفْسُ الطَّيِّبَةِ, O righteous soul, أُخْرُجِي إِلَى مَغْفِرَةٍ مِّنَ اللَّهِ وَرِضْوَانٍ. Come out to the forgiveness from Allah and to the pleasure of Allah. Meaning Allah has forgiven you, Allah is pleased with you. So come here, come out. And the scholars, they elaborate and they say that the angel of death here is so gentle with the soul. He's not forcing it out. It's like he's talking to, you know how like sometimes, not here in Calgary, but perhaps in other countries, maybe in our home countries, sometimes you see a stray cat on the street and it looks like really, really cute, and like, you're a kid, you want to play with it. So you're like, here kitty, come, right? Come closer, right? And you try to offer it, some things, you're trying to play with the cat, come and get closer, right? So the angel of death is acting so gently towards that righteous soul, and that's how he's getting it to come out. Just come out, come on now, yalla shway, a little bit, come step by step. So he's super gentle with the soul. فَتَخْرُجُ تَسِيلُ كَمَا تَسِيلُ الْقَطْرَةُ مِنْ فِي السِّقَاءِ. The soul flows out, and he describes it like a drop of water that comes out of the bottle of water. So how when you pour the bottle, you pour it out, and then the last few drops, they're coming out, it's like a super pure, easy, they're coming out nice and smoothly. So the soul will come out very gently, and the person will not feel any pain when the soul is coming out because of how gently it is coming out. And as soon as the angel of death grabs that soul, now the other angels, they get up and they say, your job is done, give us that soul. That soul is ours now to take. We have been entrusted with that soul. So the angels, they immediately take that soul and they wrap this soul, they shroud it with the garment from Jannah, and they perfume it with the perfume from Jannah. And the Rasul ﷺ, he even describes that perfume. He says, the fragrance that comes out of that perfume is better than any fragrance that exists on this earth. And so what do? They start going up in the heavens. They start ascending the heavens while they are carrying this soul. So they arrive to the first heaven, to the doors of the first heaven, and they meet a group of angels. And every time, as they continue to descend, the heavens are full of angels. So every time they pass by a group of angels, the angels would wonder, who is this soul? Who is this righteous soul? What is this really good smell? And so the angels will respond, the angels of mercy will respond to those group of angels, and they will say that this is the soul of Fulan ibn Fulan ibn Fulan, that this is the son of so and so, and they will call him with his favorite names that he loves to be called with. They love him, they call him with the most beloved names to him. So whatever name you like to be called in this world, if you have a certain name or a certain nickname or a certain title that you like to be referred to as, the angels will know that, and they will refer to you with whatever you like to be called in. And so they they greet that soul, and then the soul continues to ascend into the second, and the same thing happens. A group of angels comes, and then the third, and then the fourth, all the way until the seventh heaven. And then the gates of Jannah are opened by the time they arrive to the seventh heaven, and they hear a voice, the voice of Allah Azza wa Jal, who says, "Uktubu kitab abdi fil illiyin," that record the book of my servant in al-illiyin. Now, what is al-illiyin? And we learned this from Surah Al-Mutaffifin, that there are two different records. There is a record specifically for the believers, and a record that is specifically for the disbelievers. And the record of the believers is called Illiyin. Kalla inna kitab al-abrari lafi Illiyin. Whereas the disbelievers, Kalla inna kitab al-fujari lafi Sijjin. So the Sijjin is the name of the records of the disbelievers. Then Allah Azza wa Jal, He says, keep in mind, the soul has now just passed away. It has gone through all of this experience, but it's not the day of judgment yet. And nobody shall enter Jannah or Jahannam before the day of judgment. So Allah Azza wa Jal, He then says, أَعِيدُوهُ إِلَى الْأَرْضِ, bring him down back to earth. فَإِنِّي مِنْهَا خَلَقْتُهُمْ وَفِيهَا أُعِيدُهُم وَمِنْهَا أُخْرِجُهُمْ تَارَةً أُخْرَى. Bring him back to earth, for it is from the earth which I created them from, and to the earth they shall return, and from the earth I shall resurrect them again. So the soul is brought down back to earth into the, and it is brought back to the actual body where it was, it's no longer part of the body such that it can move anymore, but it is back such that it experiences its own janazah. We'll get to that a little bit later. Now pause here for a second. What exactly is going on over here? What's the whole point? Why couldn't the soul just be taken out and taken straight into the grave? Why, shrouding by the shroud of Jannah, and then the fragrance and the angels are taken up all the way up to the seventh heaven, and then being brought all the way down? This is a form of honoring. This is a form of, greeting the soul that has lived a righteous life. Think about it this way. In today's world, someone who is very important, a foreign minister, comes to visit a country, so he arrives they take him in his private jet, right? And then as soon as he lands, what happens? They lay out a red carpet for him. And then once he comes down the stairs from the red carpet, all of these really important people, they come and greet him. And then they bring him into, a fancy car, and then they drive him around the place. They show him around the city a little bit before they take him into his actual, meeting, the reason why he's actually here for. So in a nutshell, it's kind of a similar way. You're being honored. You're being shown the results of your deeds before actually the day of judgment. You're being honored in this kind of manner. So that is what we are told about the soul, the righteous soul, the person who lived a righteous life. He feared Allah Azza wa Jal, and he strived towards the akhirah, and he lived this dunya, but dunya was never his ultimate goal. What about the other kinds of soul? The Rasul ﷺ then describes the evil soul. وَإِنَّ الْعَبْدَ الْكَافِرِ, now the disbeliever, إِذَا كَانَ فِي إِقْبَالٍ مِنَ الْآخِرَةِ وَانْقِطَاعٍ مِنَ الدُّنْيَا it's the other way around. That when this disbeliever, he lived his whole life thinking that dunya is all what matters, thinking his whole life is just about earning reputation, earning money, and becoming, gaining power, and he never really crossed his mind to worship Allah, or he never humbled himself towards the message, and he lived his life and he died in this manner. نزل إليه ملائكة سود الوجوه معهم المسوح من النار, that angels with dark faces, scary looking angels, shall come down, and they are carrying clothing from the hellfire. They're holding blankets from the hellfire. And similar to the angels of mercy, they don't come and approach the person right away. They go and they sit in the corner, and they wait for the angel of death to do his job. And the angel of death comes down, and the scholars, they explain and they say the angel of death will come in a very scary looking appearance. He's gonna come in a terrifying appearance that will scare the soul, and he will speak to the soul in a very sharp in a very harsh manner. And he will say, أَيَّتُهَا النَّفْسُ الْخَبِيثَةُ, O filthy soul, اخرجي إلى سخط من الله وغضب. Come out to the anger of Allah and to the wrath of Allah. And because of how attached how attached this soul is to this world, the soul actually refuses to come out. Unlike the righteous soul who slowly comes out, their evil soul refuses to come out because of how attached it is to this dunya. And so the angel of death rips the soul out of the body, rips it in the most severe, most painful, and the harshest manner possible. And this is referenced in the Quran when Allah Azza wa Jal says, وَالنَّازِعَاتِ غَرْقًا. This is the nazi'at. And nazi'at, what is a nazi'at? A nazi'at is referring to the angel of death who rip out the soul of the disbeliever. And so he rips out that soul, and the angels of punishment, they jump over the soul, they grab it, they shroud it over with the shrouding of Jahannam. And of course, Jahannam, it has unlike the fragrance of Jannah, it has a filthy smell to it as well. And so they ascend the heavens, just like they did to the righteous soul. And they go, and as they are going up, they meet groups of angels. And the groups of angels are saying, who is this? There's such a filthy stench. What is this stench over here? And so the angels, they would respond. They would say, this is the soul of Fulan ibn Fulan ibn Fulan. They will name this person, but they will name him in the most humiliating manner. The worst names that you would not like anyone to ever call you, this is what the angels will be calling to that soul. And they will go up to the doors of the heavens to enter the next heaven. However, the doors shall not even open for them because they were not welcomed in the first place. And then the Rasul ﷺ, as soon as he described this, he recited the verse from Surah Al-A'raf, إِنَّ الَّذِينَ كَذَّبُوا بِآيَاتِنَا وَاسْتَكْبَرُوا عَنْهَا. Those who disbelieved and were too arrogant to believe in our verses, لَا تُفَتَّحُ لَهُمْ أَبْوَابُ السَّمَاءِ. The doors of the heaven shall not open to them. And a voice will call out, the voice of Allah Azza wa Jal, that write the book of this, of this soul, of this evil soul, in the records of Sijjin. And then the soul is commanded to go back down to earth. So this is one of the realities that every single person will experience. Either they are among the righteous or they are among the evil. How is this determined? It is all determined by how you perform today, by the deeds that you perform today. Now we also learn, and this is not really found in any ahadith, however, it is mentioned in the books of the righteous, righteous people who came after the Sahaba and the Tabi'un and whatnot. And we are told something interesting about Al-Imam Ahmad radiyallahu anhu, rahimahullah. Al-Imam Ahmad, who lived, of course, he's one of the greatest scholars to ever walk the face of this earth. He was a muhaddith, he was a faqih, he was such a great scholar. And on the moment of his death, there is something that is recorded about him, that he would, that when he was passing away, his children were around him and people were around him. And in his final moments, they would hear him say, La ba'd, laysa ba'd, not yet, not yet. It's not, and he would repeat this, not yet, not yet. So his son then asked him that, oh my father, why are you saying not yet? What do you mean not yet? So he tells him, Imam Ahmad then responds, he says, Shaitan right now is standing near me. And he's saying to me, congratulations, O Ahmad, you have escaped from me. Congratulations, you have made it, you've escaped, khalas, you can now sit down and relax. And so I was responding to Shaitan, he says, not yet, not until the angel of death comes and takes my soul. Which teaches us, Shaitan will be after us to the last moment of your life. Like literally, you're on your deathbed, you've lived a whole life, inshallah, a life of righteousness, but even then Shaitan does not let you go. He will come after you to the last moment of your life. And this is why our Rasul ﷺ, we learn in the authentic hadith, he would make the dua, Allahumma inni a'udhu bika an yatakhabbatani ash-shaytanu 'inda al-maut. That, oh Allah, I seek refuge in you from being overcome by the shaitan at the time of death. So while we don't really have details about what is shaitan doing and what is his role in, during the time of death, we do know that he does try, I guess, one final attempt to sway you at the moment of death, at the very least to get the person not to say the kalima of La ilaha illallah before they pass away. So clearly the moment of death is something very elaborate. It's not as simple as we view it on the outside, where someone, the heart monitor just goes flat and that's it. It's something much more elaborate and an experience that every single one of us, whether you like it or not, we are going to have to go through. We're gonna, all of us, witness in the moment of our death, we're gonna witness angels entering the room and sitting in the corner. We're gonna witness some form of the angel of death. And the real question here is, what is the angel going to say to us? Is he going to speak to me, and is he going to say to me, Ya ayyatuha an-nafs al-mutma'inna, Ya ayyatuha an-nafs al-tayyibah, that, O righteous soul, come out to the pleasure and forgiveness of Allah? Or will it say otherwise, O filthy soul, come out? So the goal here, the moral here behind this is work for your moment of death today before it is too late. Death, while it is scary to many of us, it is a moment of relief for the true believer. Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he says, the believer يستريح من أذى الدنيا ونصبها إلى رحمة الله ونصبها إلى رحمة الله. That the true believer, he finds comfort from, in his death, because he will finally be free from all the problems of dunya. He will finally be free from all the exhaustions and all the sadness and all the pain that comes in the dunya, and he will now be destined to a life of happiness beginning from his moment of death. Whereas for the person who neglected Allah, and a person who just lived his life following his own whims of desires, he was constantly reminded to fear Allah, constantly reminded to pray his 5 daily prayers, constantly reminded to follow the sunnah. He didn't really care. This is what Allah quotes in the Quran. These people will say, حَتَّى إِذَا جَاءَ أَحَدَهُمُ الْمَوْتِ قَالَ رَبِّ ارْجِعُونَ. He will say, oh Allah, just bring me back. لَعَلِّي أَعْمَلُ صَالِحًا فِي مَا تَرَكْتُ. Perhaps I can do good. I'll be a good person. Now I've seen all of this. If you just give me one more chance to go back and fix everything and live a good life, I will do so. But then Allah says, كَلَّا إِنَّهَا كَلِمَةٌ هُوَ قَائِلُهَا. That no, absolutely not. This is only a phrase that he will utter. وَمِن وَرَائِهِمْ بَرْزَخٌ إِلَى يَوْمِ يُبْعَثُونَ. And from that moment on, they shall have a barzakh between them until the day of judgment. And this is the terminology here. Barzakh is referring the barrier. The word barzakh literally means barrier. So barzakh is the barrier between life and the day of judgment. So every dead soul at the moment right now, they are living in the world of al-barzakh. So what exactly is the barzakh, and what does the soul experience in al-barzakh? Much can be said, but let's first go back to a point that I had kind of glossed over earlier. The soul is brought back to this earth, and it will get to experience its own janazah. Allahu A'lam, this is a reality that we learned from one of the hadiths of the Rasul sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. And he says, إِذَا وُضِعَتِ الْجَنَازَةُ وَاحْتَمَلَهَا الرِّجَالُ عَلَىٰ أَعْنَاقِهِمْ. That when the janazah is put down and the people are now carrying the janazah, فَإِنْ كَانَتْ صَالِحَةً قَالَتْ قَدِّمُونِي. That if the soul of the janazah is a righteous soul, then it will be saying to the people around it, even though they cannot hear it, quick, bring me to my grave. Quick, hurry up and bring me to my grave. وَإِنْ كَانَتْ غَيْرَ صَالِحَةٍ قَالَتْ يَا وَيْلُهَا أَيْنَ تَذْهَبُونَ بِهَا. That the disbelieving soul, the evil soul, it won't know where it is going, and it's going to be scared, and it's going to be screaming out to the people, where are you taking me? Where are you taking me? Stop! Where are you taking me? يسمع صوتها كل شيء إلا الإنسان. And subhanallah, this is perhaps a mercy from Allah to us. We are unable to hear these words. We are unable to hear these voices. Every other creation can hear it, except for the human being. وَلَوْ سَمِعَهُ الْإِنسَانُ لَصَعِقٍ. And had mankind been able to hear it, he would collapse out of shock. So this is so from this we also learn, and we know it is the sunnah, that when a person passes away, it is the sunnah to hasten in the janazah. Quickly hurry up, wash the body, shroud the body, take him, pray the janazah on him, take it quickly to the graveyard and bury him. Don't delay it. And this is sometimes an issue that I've seen here, especially in the Muslim families here in the West. They don't understand this reality, so they just kind of shove the dead body in the freezer, and they just wait until the extended family arrives. They're like, no, we have to wait because the grandpa is a respected person, and we have to wait for everybody to show up. So they wait 2 days, 3 days, 4 days, and or some people, they say, I don't want to bury the person here. I would like to bury him back in my home country, or I would like to bury him in such and such a place. So the sunnah, the proper sunnah, is you don't pick and choose where this person is buried. You don't wait for certain people to show up. You hurry up as fast as possible, because the faster you bury this person, the more quickly he shall be able to relax in his grave. So Allahu A'lam, this does show us that during the janazah, the soul is conscious about what is happening to it. The soul is conscious that there is a janazah prayer being prayed upon. The soul is conscious that it is being lifted into the graveyard. And the soul is conscious that it is being taken down into the grave. Now that brings us to an interesting question, which is a huge issue of dispute. And this is not the time or the place to go into this dispute, but I'm just going to mention it anyways. Can the dead hear you? Meaning, if today I were to go to the graveyard and I were to stand next to a grave and I would start making dua to Allah for this person who has died in front of me, is this person actually physically hearing me? Well, yes and no. We do learn from a hadith, that the authentic hadith, that Rasul says, إن العبد إذا وضع في قبره وتولى عنه أصحابه إنه ليسمع قرع نعالهم. That when a person is buried, when a person is buried, and the people walk away from his janazah, he says this person, he can hear the footsteps of the people walking in his janazah. Now, does that necessarily mean that this is the same way I hear footsteps, or the same things that the same way that we hear today is the same way that they hear in the grave? Allahu A'lam. This is from the knowledge of al-ghaib, and so some scholars, or a group of scholars, they argue that yes, they can hear, and they take as evidence an authentic incident that happened in the seerah after the battle of Badr. After the battle of Badr, and this is what really adds the confusion to all of this. The Rasul ﷺ, after they took all the dead from the pagans, all of the bodies of the kuffar, they dumped them into a well, and they blocked the well with sand. And before the Muslims left back to Medina, the Rasul ﷺ walked up to that well. It's dead people. And he spoke to them. And he started talking to one of them individually. O Abu Lahab, O Umayyah, O people of the well, have you found the promise of Allah to be true? For I have found the promise of Allah to be true. And so Umar al-Khattab walked up to the Rasul ﷺ and he asked him that, Ya Rasulullah, they're dead people. They cannot hear you. Why are you talking to them? And so then the Rasul ﷺ, he responded and he says, O Umar, wallahi, you are unable to hear any better than they can. Meaning the same way that you're hearing me, they can hear me as well. So the scholars, they kind of get into difference. Can they hear you? Can they not hear you? And some scholars, they say that this specific incident in Badr was only specific to the Rasul ﷺ, and it's not just for everybody. Regardless, Allahu A'lam, the soul, Allahu A'lam, just based on the meanings of the hadith, at the very least, it is conscious of what is going on. It knows, it's conscious that it's currently in a janazah, and it is, conscious of the reality that is happening around it. And this is when the next stage begins. And this is where, reality really, really sinks in. And this should, wallahi, scare us. Because remember, in your grave, nothing will be left for you. Nothing is left. Your family that loved you so much, your wealth that you spent years and years and decades of your life accumulating, shall all disappear in a second. Your family, they'll be sad for a few days and then they'll get over you. Your wealth, your family will jump at your wealth, and they'll and they will quickly split your wealth, and it was as if you had never even lived in this earth anymore. The only thing that shall come with you in the grave is your a'mal, is your good deeds. So after the burial is done, this is when a person is questioned by the angels. We are told by the hadith narrated by Abu Hurairah radiallahu anhu, إذا قبر الميت, that when the deceased person is buried, أتاه ملكان أسودان أزرقان يقال لأحدهما المنكر ولآخر النكير. That when this person is buried, two angels, and the translation here doesn't really do it, doesn't really relay the meaning. It says there are two black and blue angels shall come to him. Now, black and blue is not meant as in like they're multicolored, like physically multicolored. No, it's meant to tell you that they're scary looking angels. They will bring fear in you. Allah Azza wa Jal says, for example, in the Quran, يَوْمَ يُنْفَخُ فِي الصُّورِ وَنَحْشُرُ الْمُجْرِمِينَ يَوْمَئِذٍ زُرْقًا. Their faces are going to be blue when they're gathered on the Day of Judgment. That doesn't mean that they're literally blue-faced, but blue is a color typically, and even today in our emojis, we have that emoji, blue-faced emoji. Someone is terrified. So these two angels, they're going to look very scary, they're going to look very terrifying, and they're going to come and approach this person who has just been buried, the soul of the person. Now the scholars, they comment here, they say, why are the angels really scary here? Because both the believer and the disbeliever will see really scary looking angels, two scary looking angels. And the purpose of them being scary looking is to bring out the real state of the soul, such that you cannot lie in front of them. Whatever you answer these angels, this is now coming from the deepest depths of your soul. It's not something that you're thinking about and then you're giving an answer to get away from trouble. So the angels will come to a person, and they will ask this person three questions in the grave. Man Rabbuk? Who is your Lord? Ma Dinuk? What is your religion? Man hadha al-rajulu alladhi bu'itha fikum? And who is the man who was sent among you? So now to us today, anyone who is asked, you can ask a 5-year-old today, they'll be able to answer. Who is your Lord? Allah. What is your religion? Islam. Who is the man who was sent among you? Rasul Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Easy peasy. But again, right now you are so scared in front of these angels, the soul is answering from its deepest depths. Meaning only a person who truly believed in the answers to these questions will be able to properly answer. Someone who did not genuinely believe in Allah will not be able to answer. Now the believers answer, Allah Azza wa Jal, He grants them firmness. Allah Azza wa Jal, He says in the Quran, يُثَبِّتُ اللَّهُ الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا بِالْقَوْلِ الثَّابِتِ فِي الْحَيَاةِ الدُّنْيَا وَفِي الْآخِرَةِ. That Allah shall grant steadfastness to the believers in this life and in the hereafter. And the scholars, they comment in the tafsir of this verse, they say that Allah grants them firmness in this life by granting them the firmness to say the kalima in the moment of death. In the middle of sakaratul maut and everything, he would say, Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah wa ashhadu anna Muhammadan Rasulullah. Wa fil akhirah, meaning in the grave. That Allah shall grant them the firmness and steadfastness such that they will be able to answer these three questions properly. And when a servant answers these three questions correctly, a voice shall call out from the heavens, and he says, my servant has spoken the truth, meaning he's answered correctly. And so immediately the Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he says, the grave will expand as far as the eye can see, and a window to Jannah shall be opened for him. Meaning this person, he's not in Jannah, but he's almost sitting in a waiting room right now. And he can see his Jannah from the other side. And so the person will feel so happy, and he will smell the fragrance of Jannah, and he will feel the breeze of Jannah, and he will be so excited. And he will say to Allah that, Ya Allah, just aqim as-sa'a. Let the day of judgment come already, because khalas, this person doesn't care anymore. Who cares about the rest of mankind? I know now that I'm about to enter Jannah. So Ya Allah, just let the day of judgment come already. I want to enter my Jannah. Whereas on the other hand, the soul that perhaps knew the answers, they had the information. They knew that Allah is the Lord, and they knew that religion is Islam, but they never really acted upon it. It never really entered their hearts. Whether because they were disbelievers or hypocrites or people who had huge doubts about Islam, the Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he says that these people will say, la adri, that I don't know, like they will think I don't know. Who is your Lord? I don't know. What is your religion? I don't know. Who is this man? I don't know. And so the voice from the heavens shall call and will say, he has lied. He will say, justifying himself, I remember hearing people saying something. I remember hearing people saying, La ilaha illallah. And so I would say it because everybody else would say it. And so a voice will call out, he has lied. And so the grave will now close in. To the point that Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam, may Allah protect us, he says, until his own ribs crush him. And a window to the hellfire shall be opened. And he will feel the stench of the hellfire and the heat of the hellfire. And an angel will come and he will strike him with a hammer. And the Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he says that this person will start screaming. And everything, all the creation will hear his screams except for human beings and the jinn. And he will say, and he will beg Allah, oh Allah, don't ever bring the day of judgment. Don't bring the day of judgment, because he knows he's going to enter into Jahannam. So, all of this happens, tied into the janazah, which show us today the importance of attending janazah prayers. So whenever you hear an announcement that there is a janazah happening at a masjid, put in the work, put in the effort, try to attend that janazah, just like you would like people to attend your janazah. And what is janazah prayer actually? Janazah prayer is just a dua that you're making to Allah. You're begging Allah, oh Allah, have mercy on this person. Oh Allah, forgive this person. And there's a hadith of the Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam that the meaning of the hadith, no Muslim dies and 40 people attend janazah over him. This Muslim died upon La ilaha illallah Muhammad Rasulullah, and 40 people attend his janazah, except that Allah shall accept their intercession. And meaning Allah shall grant them mercy and forgiveness and nur in their grave. So we should do our due diligence while we are still able to offer janazah prayer to any person that we hear has passed away. So, a couple more things, inshallah, we'll talk about, inshallah, before we wrap up. I'll try my best to finish on time, but subhanAllah, when it comes to talking about the grave and the Barzakh and whatnot, there's so much to be talked about, and I'm only trying to, scratch the surface over here. Now, when you go and read the books of Seerah, there is an interesting section you would find after the Battle of Al-Khandaq. If you can open it in the Seerah of Ibn Hisham, that when Sa'ad ibn Mu'adh, the leader of the Ansar, passed away, he got wounded and he died because of his wound. And Sa'ad ibn Mu'adh, he was among the most righteous, even among the Ansar. Even the throne of Allah shook when Sa'ad ibn Mu'adh passed away. 70,000 angels descended to attend his janazah. And while they were burying Sa'ad ibn Mu'adh, out of nowhere the Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he just says, Subhanallah, Allahu Akbar. He just says that. So the Sahaba didn't really know what was going on. So and this was the way they were. So they all said it together, Subhanallah, Allahu Akbar. Right? Like they just repeated after the Rasul. And then one of them eventually asked, like, why did you say that? He says then, Subhanallah, لَقَدْ ضُمَّ ضَمَّةً. That Sa'ad ibn Mu'adh has just been squeezed in his grave. And I thought that if anyone in this world would escape from the squeeze of the grave, it would have been Sa'ad ibn Mu'adh. So, what exactly is the squeeze of the grave? Allahu A'lam. It's not the same squeeze that, the person who failed to answer the 3 questions and get crushed. No. It appears, Allahu A'lam, every single person will experience a squeeze in their grave, and then the grave will let them go. Now, what exactly is that squeeze, and why is it happening, and what are the details? Nothing really is mentioned beyond this narration over here in the seerah. Then we move on. What is now happening to this person in their grave? After they have answered the angels, and either they're now, the grave has expanded or has shrunk even more. Well, we know from the same hadith, along with other hadith as well, that once the grave expands, then a caller from the heaven calls out. They will hear a voice from the heavens. My servant has spoken the truth. So spread out for him beds from Jannah. Give him a bed from Jannah. And clothe him with the clothing of Jannah, and open for him a gate to Jannah. And he will smell the fragrance of Jannah, and he will feel the breeze of Jannah, and then he will hear a voice. He will see a person come to him as well, a man with a very beautiful appearance coming up to him in his grave, and he will say to him, receive glad tidings of that which will make you happy. This is the day that you've worked hard towards. This is the day that you have been promised. And so the dead person will ask, who are you? I don't recognize you, but your face brings me happiness. And so he says, don't you recognize me? I am your good deeds. I am your good deeds. So subhanAllah, like all these prayers, all of this charity, all of the taraweeh and the qiyam and the istighfar and the dhikr and all of this effort that you've been putting now shall come to greet you in your grave as a companion. And so the believer will be so happy, and he will say, oh Allah, bring in the day of judgment. But instead, the Rasul ﷺ, he said that this person, he shall be told, نم نومة العروس الذي لا يوقظه إلا أحب أهله إليه. That go and sleep now. Sleep like the bride, like the bride who's about to be wed, and she is now sleeping, and she will only be woken up by someone who really loves her. So, meaning the grave will now shall become a place of resting and comfort and peace for this soul. He's sleeping. It's a big grave, comfortable, gardens of Jannah, smell of Jannah, breeze of Jannah. No stress in this world, nobody, coming and bothering you or anything like this. Khalas, peace until the day of judgment. Whereas on the other hand, we ask Allah to protect us, there is also the punishment of the grave. The punishment of the grave, which will come to specific categories of people depending on certain sins that they have committed. Our Rasul sallallahu alayhi wasallam, he says, إِنَّ هَذِهِ الْأُمَّةَ تُبْتَلَى فِي قُبُورِهَا. That this nation shall be tested in their graves. What does that mean? Not tested as in like there's going to be good deeds or bad deeds, but you are going to see the results of your deeds also in your own graves. And in another narration, he elaborates it more, and he says, الْقَبْرُ إِمَّا رَوْضَةً مِّن رِيَاضِ الْجَنَّةِ أَوْ حُفْرَةً مِّن حُفَرِ النَّارِ. The grave is either going to be a garden from the gardens of Jannah, or either it's going to be a hole or pits from the pits of Jahannam. So, for example, we know from these different ahadith certain examples about the punishments of the grave. We know of a famous incident where one time the Rasul ﷺ walked by a graveyard, and then he pointed towards 2 graves, And he says that these two people, إِنَّهُمَا لَيُعَذَّبَانِ وَمَا يُعَذَّبَانِ بِكَبِيرٍ في كبير, that these two people, they're believers, they're righteous people, but they are being punished in their graves. And they're not punished because of something really big that they have done. So then he later explained and he said that أَمَّا أَحَدُهُمَا فَكَانَ لَا يَسْتَتِرُ مِنْ بَوْلِهِ, that one of these people, he would not protect himself from his own urine in the washroom. Meaning, like when he would go to the washroom, he would not clean himself properly, and he would, put on his clothing immediately, and he would walk out of the washroom without cleaning himself. Well, traces of urine are still there, and so this is a cause of the punishment of the grave. وَأَمَّا الْآخَرُ فَكَانَ يَمْشِي بِالنَّمِيمَةِ, whereas the other person, he would spread gossip among people. Gossiping is not the same as backbiting. Backbiting is you talking badly about someone behind their back. Gossiping means now you're spreading the word to other people. So, for example, a person goes to another person and he says, oh, I heard that guy, he said 1, 2, 3 about you, right? And so now you got these two people, maybe that person did backbiting to that person, but now you've made it even worse. You've fueled the fire even more. You've allowed the gossip to spread. So this is among the reasons why of the punishment of the grave. Of the sins that lead to the punishment of the grave, we have several. We have different ahadith that tell us different types of the punishments of the grave. Of them is lying. One time, the Rasul ﷺ, he had a dream. He had a dream where he saw certain people being punished. And in the same dream, he saw a person whose mouth was being torn open. And so the Rasul ﷺ asked, who is this person? Why is he punished in this way? And so the angels, they said, this is the man who leaves his house and spreads a lot of lies. He doesn't really control himself. He's always lying to other people. And in the same narration, he saw a man whose head was constantly being crushed with a rock. So his head would be crushed, and then the head would come back and regenerate again, and then the head would be crushed again, continuously on and on and on. So he asked, who are these people? And he says, this is the man who learned the Quran, but he never acted upon it, and he would sleep through the obligatory prayers. He would miss his obligatory prayers. And in the same hadith, he says, I saw the Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he saw men and women being punished inside what looks like an oven, and there is a fire rising beneath them. And so he says, who are these people? He says, these are the men and the women who committed zina, who fell into the fahisha, they fell into zina. And he also says, he saw a man swimming in a river of blood, while a man threw rocks into his mouth, and he would continue to fill his mouth with rocks. And so the Rasul ﷺ said, who is this person? He says, this is the person who consumed riba, who would consume interest, and he would make his money through the haram. So there's a whole category about the punishments of the grave, and they're really discomforting to go and read, but it's important for us to also know them so that we know, and it causes us to prepare from now to avoid such punishments. Now, it is possible for believers to be punished in their graves. It is possible, depending on their state and depending on the sins that they have committed. However, sometimes, in some cases, a believer is punished in the grave such that he does not have to get punished in the akhirah. So, even to the believer, in some cases, the punishment of a grave is a mercy from Allah to them, such that they don't have to experience the punishment of Jahannam, which is on a completely another level. So all of this together comes to teach us the reality of what's going to come. And again, all of this is from ilm al-ghayb. And all of this is important because it tells you, first and foremost, as the Rasul ﷺ, he tells us, إِنَّ الْقَبْرَ أَوَّلَ مَنَازِلِ الْآخِرَةِ. The first stage of your akhirah, the first stage of your quote-unquote, your day of judgment is your own grave. And we're going to be, Allahu A'lam, but typically speaking, a person spends much, much, much longer in the grave than he spends in his life. Our Rasul ﷺ, for example, has lived 63 years in his active soul phase. And he's been right now in his grave for over 1,400 years. Over 1,400 years. And the people before him, they've been in there in their graves for longer. So how long are we going to live today? 50 years, 60, 70, 80? If you have really good health and genetics, maybe 100 years, 110? Good for you. How long are you going to spend in your grave? And what is going to be the state of your grave? And the Rasul ﷺ, he tells us, the one who is saved from the grave shall be saved from what comes after the grave. Whereas the one who is not saved from the grave shall also not be saved from what comes after. So, it is our duty today to prepare ourselves for what is coming. And it shall come, whether you like it or not, whether it scares you or not. All of us have a set appointment with the angel of death, and all of us will have to go through all of this, whether you like it or you not. The only thing you have control over today is your own deeds and your own amal. That amal is the only thing that shall come and greet you in your grave and shall come to your own aid. And in fact, this brings me to the final point. How do you protect yourselves in the grave? What are some things you can do today to protect yourselves from the grave? We learn from different ahadith. Abu Hurairah radiallahu anhu, he narrated, and Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he says, إِذَا فَرَغَ أَحَدُكُم مِّنَ التَّشَهُّدِ الْأَخِيرِ فَلْيَسْتَعِذْ بِاللَّهِ مِنْ أَرْبَعٍ. Whenever you are in praying in salah, and you finish your final tashahhud, you say, فِي الْعَالَمِينَ إِنَّكَ حَمِيدٌ مَجِيدٌ, and you're done, and you're waiting for salam. Before you do the taslim, the Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he would seek refuge in Allah from 4 things. And he would say, Allahumma inni a'udhu bika min adhabi jahannam. O Allah, I seek refuge from Jahannam. وَمِنْ عَذَابِ الْقَبْرِ, and from the punishment of the grave. وَمِنْ فِتْنَةِ الْمَحْيَا وَالْمَمَاتِ, and from the trials of life and death. وَمِنْ شَرِّ فِتْنَةِ الْمَسِيحِ الدَّجَّالِ, and from the evil fitna of ad-Dajjal. And he would do this every single salah. He would do it so much so that some Sahaba, they thought that this was now an obligatory part of the prayer, that you would have to add it in your prayer. So we should also learn this dua and add it in all of our prayers, inshaAllah. All of us are familiar with Surah Al-Mulk, right? Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he says, Surah min al-Quran, 30 ayatun shafa'at li rajulin hatta ghufira lah. That there is a surah in the Quran, 30 verses, it interceded to a person until he has been forgiven, and that is Surah Tabaraka alladhi biyadihi al-mulk, Surah Al-Mulk. In another narration, it is even mentioned that when the angels come in the grave to drag a person to his punishment, your own body parts will speak up. So they will try to drag him from his head. His head will speak and it will say, you have no power over us, because he used to recite Surah Al-Mulk. They will come to try to grab it from his hands. The hands will speak and they'll say, you have no power over us. He used to recite Surah Al-Mulk. They will try to drag him from his feet. They will say, you have no power over us. He used to recite Surah Al-Mulk. So the point here is, recite Surah Al-Mulk. It doesn't have to be before you go to sleep. It can be in the morning, it can be at night. And it's just about frequent recitation of Surah Al-Mulk. And of course, the best protection from the grave is to just simply live a righteous life. And at the end of the day, what you're going to see in your grave is your own righteous deeds. That is what you're going to have with you. As we mentioned in the punishments of the grave, there are people who would miss their daily salawat. They would sleep through the salawat. So we need to do our due diligence. Protect your salawat, no matter what. No matter if you're tired or whatever, don't you ever give the excuse to miss your salah. I mentioned it the other day in one of my khatiras. Today you can find a fatwa for everything, okay? Today, if you go and browse the internet and look through all the different articles and web pages, you're gonna find some obscure fatwa somewhere that tells you that it's okay for you to miss your salawat and just make them up before you go to bed, just because you have school or because you have work or because you have this and that. It's easy to make excuses. If you're gonna go down this route, then I'm telling you, everything in the Quran everything that is haram shall be made halal for you. You will find a fatwa for everything, believe me. So, especially for prayers, don't be so easy going on your prayers. Don't be so quick to just try to find an excuse or a loophole to get you not to pray on your time. Guard your daily prayer and make dua to Allah Azza wa Jal to grant you husn al-khatimah, to grant you a righteous death. You know, subhanAllah, this is a concept. We find it in the hadith. ما من مسلم يموت يوم الجمعة أو ليلة الجمعة إلا وقاه الله فتنة القبر. That for one among the examples, a Muslim who passes away on a Friday, on the morning or the evening of a Friday, shall be protected from the fitna of the qabr. What is the fitna of the qabr? The three questions. Just because he passed away on a Friday. Or for example, a person who passes away in Medina and gets buried in the graveyard of Al Baqi'. The graveyard of Al Baqi' has a special status. That Rasulullah, he says, I shall intercede myself for all the people who are buried in Al Baqi'. So this is of course not something that you can choose. This is a gift from Allah to a person. You know, a person dies in their sujood, dies in a state of salah, dies in a state of reciting Quran, dies in a state of ihram as they're going for umrah or their hajj. So we should make dua for Allah to, grant us a righteous ending. Always be in a state of tawbah, right? Always repent back to Allah from whatever you are doing. So just to kind of wrap all of this up, yes, the grave, all of these hadith, they are meant to frighten you, they're meant to scare you, they're meant to make you feel uncomfortable. The grave might seem as a frightening place, but again, for a believer who works and he puts in effort in this world, the grave is a place of peace and tranquility, but it is all determined by what you send in today. And as Rasul he says, that remember, تذكروا هادم اللذات, that remember the destroyer of pleasures. Always have death in your mind. Always remember that death does not wait for you to accomplish your goals. He does not wait for you to reach a certain age. He doesn't wait for you to graduate. He doesn't wait for you to retire. He doesn't wait for you to travel the world or for you to raise a family and then you start worshiping. When your time comes, death comes and cuts all of your dreams in half, and He does not wait for you, and nor does He wait for your state of repentance. You need to be prepared for death, because death is prepared to come for you when the time will come. So we ask Allah Azza wa Jal to grant us a righteous death. We ask Allah Azza wa Jal to protect us, in this world and in the hereafter. We ask Allah Azza wa Jal to allow us and to guide us to live a life of taqwa and piety, and to die upon the kalima la ilaha illallah. Subhanakallah wa bihamdik, ashhadu an la ilaha illa ant, astaghfiruka wa atubu ilayk. Inshallah, next week we will, I guess the time change is taking place tomorrow. I personally, I am okay with. Yeah, I think so. So I think we can just keep it here from 3 to 4, inshallah. And so next week will be the conclusion, inshallah. We will talk about what exactly happens on the day of judgment. What happens to the soul on the day of judgment from the moment it is resurrected until the moment that it enters its eternal destination. So we will see you next week, inshallah. Jazakumullahu khair. Two things. First and foremost, I think we'll pray Asr now. And number two, I did kind of announce it, and again, I'm not going to force anyone to do this, but I did kind of put that there is a $10 sadaqah fee to this lecture, as an effort and a motivation for us to kind of give for sadaqah. So I placed the machine outside the hall, on your way out on the thingy, on the side. So you'll find it. So give whatever you can, inshallah. Jazakumullah khair.